Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Training camp is 10 days away, and the Washington Commanders just got the one update they've been sweating over for months. Forget the mock drafts, forget the depth chart debates, forget the hot takes about who's going to start at nickel. None of it matters if the best cornerback on the roster can't walk out onto that practice field. And for months, that's exactly the fear that's been sitting in the back of every Commanders fan's mind. Well, fear no more, because Trey Amos himself just spoke, and what he said should have this entire fan base breathing a whole lot easier. Here's how it went down. Amos has been quietly streaming himself on Twitch the last couple of days, playing God of War, hanging out with fans, answering questions about his life, his offseason, and inevitably, his health. He doesn't run his broadcast with the replay feature turned on, so once the stream ends, it vanishes from the internet like it never happened. No VOD, no clip, no receipts, just the people who were there live, watching in real time. And somebody was there. When Amos got asked point blank whether he'd be ready for training camp, he didn't hedge, he didn't dodge, he didn't give one of those vague athlete non-answers we've all learned to roll our eyes at. He said plainly that he's going to be healthy and he's going to be ready to go. Now let's rewind for anyone who needs the full picture here, because this update means nothing if you don't understand what's actually at stake. Trey Amos was a second-round pick a year ago, and from the jump, the tape suggested Washington had found something. Length, physicality, the kind of press coverage skill set that lines up perfectly with what Durante Jones wants to run on defense. Through his first 10 games as a rookie, Amos looked like a guy who belonged, racking up 8 starts, 32 tackles, and 6 pass breakups along the way. He was building real momentum. And then, in Week 10 against the Lions, disaster struck. A fractured fibula. Season over. Just like that, one of the most encouraging storylines on the entire roster got put on ice. And Commanders fans were left staring at a long, uncertain recovery road with absolutely no timeline in sight. And that uncertainty didn't get resolved quickly. This wasn't a 2-week ankle tweak. Fibula fractures, depending on severity, can sideline a player anywhere from 6 weeks all the way up to 6 months. Do the math on that. Amos got hurt in November. We are now sitting in the back half of July. That is the better part of a full calendar year removed from the original injury, and for a stretch of that time, Amos was still very clearly not right. He wasn't a full participant at OTAs in May. Beat reporters covering the team noted him standing on the sideline in a baseball cap, very obviously not cleared to practice. Minicamp came and went without him doing much of anything on the field either. If you were watching closely, that absence started to gnaw at you. 6 months should have been more than enough time for a clean fibula recovery. So when a player is still not practicing 7-8 months out, your brain starts wandering to worse places. Was there a setback? Is this more serious than we were told? Are we quietly looking at an Ackle-style recovery timeline dressed up as a fibula story? That's exactly the anxiety this Twitch update just put to rest. Amos didn't just say he's fine in some throwaway, vague way. He said he's going to be healthy and good to go for training camp, which starts in 10 days, not in a few weeks, not sometime this preseason, 10 days. That is about as immediate and concrete a claim as an athlete can make. And to be clear, this isn't the first time he's said something like this. Back in the spring, he told fans on Instagram Live that his leg was going good, for real, and that he'd literally just left a workout. So this isn't a one-off feel-good soundbite. This has been a consistent message from him for months now, growing more confident each time he speaks. And should we take his word as gospel? Look, Amos isn't the head coach. He's not calling the shots on reps, and he's certainly not the one making medical clearance decisions. If Dan Quinn wants to ease him back in with a modified workload, some individual drills here, limited team reps there, that's completely within the coaching staff's rights, and it wouldn't contradict anything Amos said. but straight from the player's own mouth, unprompted, in a casual setting where he had zero reason to sugarcoat anything for the cameras, he says he's healthy. That's about as good a signal as this fan base is going to get right now, and honestly, it might be the single most important update of the entire offseason. Because here's the thing. If Trey Amos is genuinely healthy and ready to roll, it reshapes the entire conversation about what the Commanders just did at cornerback. About a week and a half ago, general manager Adam Peters made a move that had a lot of fans doing a double take, signing veteran corner Rasul Douglas. And in the moment, with Amos's status still shrouded in mystery, that signing set off alarm bells. Was this an insurance policy? Was this Washington quietly signaling that their CB1 wasn't coming back anytime soon, and they needed a body who could actually play outside and bring some size to a room that, frankly, was a little undersized? Amik Robertson is generously 5'9". Quan Martin doesn't profile as an outside corner. Ahkello Witherspoon is capable, sure, but Amos was the guy who was locked in as a starter, a true outside corner at 6'1", roughly 190, 195. If he wasn't walking through that door for camp, Washington needed to go find the next closest thing. And Rasul Douglas was exactly that. Worst case scenario, average, but with this new health update. It doesn't look like that's the story here at all. So then the question becomes, why bring in Douglas at all if Amos is healthy? And the answer is actually pretty simple once you look at what Douglas brings to a room that frankly needed exactly what he offers. Size, for starters, which none of the returning depth pieces really have. Experience, for another. Douglas is heading into his age 31 season, and he has been absolutely everywhere in this league. He's played for the Eagles, where he won a Super Bowl back in 2018. He's suited up for the Dolphins. He was a legitimate standout for the Bills. He turned in strong seasons in Green Bay, too. This is a guy who has been a real productive NFL starter, and if you isolate just last season, Douglas arguably played at a level that nobody else in that Commanders cornerback room can claim aside from Amos himself, and even that comparison comes with an asterisk, because Amos only had roughly 7 or 8 fully healthy weeks to work with before his season ended early. Not enough of a sample to draw sweeping conclusions. Douglas, on the other hand, has a real extended body of work to point to. Now, has his career had ups and downs? Absolutely. Coming off a strong year, there's always a fair question about regression. But even with that caveat, he's a proven, established NFL starter, and if he plays anywhere close to last season's level, there's a legitimate argument he should be lining up opposite Amos on the outside. And then there's the scheme fit, which might be the most fascinating layer of this whole equation. At 6'2", 210 pounds, Douglas brings the exact physical profile that fits what Washington is expected to run defensively this season, with Durante Jones bringing over some clear stylistic Dina from Brian Flores. People love to say cornerback size doesn't matter in a scheme like that, and sure, to an extent that's true, but it's also not the full picture. What actually matters is physicality, hand usage, the willingness to get up in a receiver's face and disrupt the timing even out of off coverage, because that's exactly what these defenses want. That split-second jam that buys the pass rush an extra beat to get home. And it's simply easier to be physical and disruptive at the line when you've got some size and length working in your favor. On top of that, in a Flores-style scheme, outside corners and nickel defenders are expected to actually tackle, not just cover. And this is where Douglas has a real measurable edge over the other names in that room. Look at missed tackle rate over their careers. Douglas sits around 11.3%, Sainristil is at 12.6%, and Robertson checks in at 17.5%. Douglas has posted at least 58 tackles in 3 separate seasons. And he's got that willingness to come downhill and set an edge against the run. That element alone could be exactly what earns him snaps this season, whether that's as an every-down starter or in a heavy rotational role. So now you've got a cornerback room that is genuinely stacked with intrigue, and honestly, more questions than answers, which, weirdly, is actually a good sign. It means there's real competition and real depth, even if the traditional star power ceiling isn't fully locked in yet. There's been a projected starting lineup floating around suggesting Mike Sainristil and Trey Amos as the two outside corners heading into Week 1, with the clear understanding that this could absolutely shift as the season unfolds. If guys underperform early, don't be shocked if the depth chart looks completely different by Week 12. But out of the gate, there's a real case for Sainristil holding down one of those outside spots. His ability to force turnovers and play with anticipation lines up beautifully with what this scheme wants to do: pressure the quarterback, force early or rushed decisions, and let a ball hawk like Sainristil capitalize. And this isn't projection based on hope. Sainristil has shown this exact trait dating back to his college days at Michigan, where, on a defense that finished number 1 in the country, he racked up 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 6 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 44 tackles, and 6 pass deflections in his final season. That's a guy who was all over the field, every single week. And it carried into the NFL too. 2 interceptions as a rookie, 2 more in a playoff game against Detroit, and last season he piled up 4 interceptions, forced a fumble in each of his first 2 years, and even recovered one himself. This is a player with a track record of manufacturing turnovers. And that skill set is exactly the superpower this coaching staff has spent years preaching about wanting from their defensive backs. But here's where things get genuinely complicated. And this is the part of the cornerback room conversation that's going to dominate training camp headlines: Quan Martin at nickel. It's a projection that's bound to raise some eyebrows given how his last season went. And it's fair to acknowledge that Martin did not play well a year ago. But context matters here. Martin was at his best in college lining up in the slot, and even as a rookie in the NFL, he was primarily deployed at nickel after struggling mightily at free safety the year before. There's a real argument that sliding him back into his natural role, the one he was actually built for, could unlock a much better version of the player Washington drafted in the first place. And this isn't just outside speculation either. The coaching staff has reportedly been talking Martin up, praising his versatility and specifically pointing to his fit in the slot. But if Martin is at nickel, that immediately opens up a whole new set of dominoes. Where does that leave Amik Robertson? He offers inside-outside flexibility, sure, but he's clearly better suited to that nickel role than lining up outside, where he'd be undersized against bigger receivers. Except if Martin's already got that nickel spot locked down. Robertson doesn't have an obvious path onto the field in the base defense either, not with Amos and Sainristil rostered as the outside starters and Douglas breathing down their necks from the veteran end of the depth chart. So now you've got 2 established, proven veterans in Robertson and Douglas, and it's fair to assume neither of them signed up to ride the bench all year. Does that mean roles get carved out through rotation? Does it mean somebody's trade value becomes a real conversation before the season even kicks off? And flip the scenario, what if Sainristil struggles outside early on? Is Washington going to bench a former second-round pick that quickly, or do they shift him back to nickel, which is technically the position he was drafted to play and where he thrived in college, even though his limited NFL reps there haven't been as encouraging? And if Sainristil slides to nickel, that pushes Douglas into an outside starting role and leaves Robertson searching for snaps all over again. It's a legitimately layered situation, and it forces some bigger, more philosophical questions about the direction of this defense heading into camp. Is this coaching staff staying committed to developing their younger, homegrown talent, or did bringing in a proven veteran like Douglas signal a shift toward experience and reliability over upside? Can Robertson, who reportedly carries himself as something of a vocal leader in that room, find a real role even if he's not starting? Is Martin's time in Washington just getting started with a fresh opportunity at his natural position, or is this his last real shot to prove he belongs on the roster long-term? These aren't small questions, and how they get answered over the next few weeks is going to shape this defense's entire identity heading into the regular season. But zoom out from all of that complexity for just 1 second, because none of these questions matter nearly as much without the headline that kicked this whole thing off. Trey Amos says he's healthy. That is the story. That is the update this fan base has been waiting on since November. The one piece of uncertainty that could have derailed the entire defensive outlook before a single snap of training camp. And it appears, for now, that the news is good. So here's where you come in. If you want to keep getting these updates as they break, the breakdowns, the depth chart debates, all of it, hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel is closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you watching this can help get us there. If you're already subscribed, awesome. Drop a like on this video. It genuinely helps more than you'd think. And I want to hear from you directly. Head down to the comments and tell me who you've got starting at outside corner. Who's your nickel? And just as importantly, who's your plan B if things don't go the way we expect? That last question might honestly be the most interesting one of the bunch. Let's get this conversation going in the comments. Let's get this channel to 1,000 subscribers together, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.